At the beginning of the series, we see the main character, Ding Liao, living with her twin brother Dingmin in their uncle's house while he's abroad. One day, they receive a message from their uncle asking them to pick up his friend from the airport, as he's coming to China and will be staying with them for a while. The two start imagining what this man might look like, and of course, both of them try to get out of going. They argue about it, and in the end, they decide that Ding Liao will be the one to go. When Ding Liao arrives at the airport, she texts the man asking what he's wearing so she can recognize him. He replies that he's wearing black pants and a black t-shirt. A man dressed like that shows up and mocks her car, thinking it would be more luxurious. Just as Ding Liao is about to argue with him, the real guest, Jiangkan, the series' main character, arrives, also dressed in black. He introduces himself as her uncle's friend. Ding Liao is shocked to see that he's young and very handsome. She gets into the car with Jiangkan, still stunned by how attractive he is, and tries to make small talk. He briefly tells her he's a doctor, then goes quiet, which makes Ding Liao realize he's cold and not very talkative. A bit later, they arrive at the house, and when Dingmin sees Jiangkan and finds out he's a young guy, he's just as shocked. Ding Liao then shows Jiangkan to his room. The next day, Ding Liao heads to work, and we learn she's a TV show producer at a fairly popular channel. At work, she complains to her friend about Jiangkan, saying he's too serious and gets annoyed when she and her brother talk loudly, since he's trying to study. Meanwhile, Dingmin goes to his job as a martial arts trainer, where he's really popular among the girls. As for Jiangkan, he goes to work and finds his coworkers watching a video of Ding Liao, talking about how sweet and likable she is. But Jiangkan looks at the screen with sarcasm. His coworker, Ying, asks if he knows her. Jiangkan replies that she's his roommate. Everyone is surprised, and Ying says he's lucky, but Jiangkan tells them she's not what she seems. She's actually a total idiot who even wears her clothes inside out. When Jiangkan gets back home from work, Dingmin invites him to watch a movie with him. Ding Liao assumes he'll say no, but he actually joins them. After a while, Dingmin starts getting sleepy and heads to bed. Ding Liao feels awkward watching a romantic movie alone with Jiangkan, but he eventually says he's tired too and wants to sleep. Before leaving, he advises her to cut back on snacks because they cause weight gain. The next day, Ding Liao goes to work, and they're assigned to film an interview at a university with one of the most skilled and famous young doctors. After setting up the camera, Ding Liao steps outside for some air and runs into Jiangkan by chance. She assumes he's there to watch the interview and proudly tells him she'll be filming the famous doctor. She even tells him to pay close attention to the doctor's words so he can learn from his experience. When she returns to the office, she finds Ying, who's surprised to see her there and starts talking about Jiangkan. She asks how he acts at home, and Ding Liao tells her he's quiet, gloomy, and totally anti-fun. But then she realizes Jiangkan is standing behind her, glaring at her with a fiery look. She quickly backtracks and tells Ying that he's actually hardworking and super nice. When Ding Liao gets back and starts writing down the famous doctor's words, her friend tells her that this doctor has a favorite trainee, one of his best, and that all the girls at the university admire him. Ding Liao says she's heard of him before but doesn't know who he is. Suddenly, the doctor introduces his trainee, and as he steps forward, Ding Liao is shocked to see that it's Jiangkan. Meanwhile, Dingmin is at work when a high school student approaches him, says she has a crush on him, and gives him a gift. He politely refuses and tells her he's not thinking about dating right now, then leaves the place. Dingmin heads to a shop to grab some noodles, but there he sees a group of students bullying one of their classmates. Just as he's about to step in, a girl shows up and stands up for the bullied student. She tells the bullies the girl is her friend, threatens to expose them if they don't back off, and pulls out her phone. She introduces herself as Guyao, saying she's a TV presenter and will record them. Dingmin is impressed by Guyao's courage and wants to talk to her, but he bumps into someone, and by the time he looks again, she's already gone. Back at the university, the interview ends, and Ding Liao's coworker she says she should do a feature on Jiangkan since he's so popular with the girls. She walks over to him and asks for a few minutes to interview him, but he tells her he's busy and walks away, leaving her feeling awkward and rejected. Jiangkan walks straight over to Ding Liao and loudly tells her that he's busy and won't be home for dinner tonight. Ding Liao is stunned by what he said. Later, when Dingmin comes to pick her up from work, she complains to him about what Jiangkan did, saying he used her to get out of an awkward situation while putting her in one. Now she's stuck trying to explain to her coworkers why Jiangkan lives with her. The next day, Dingmin goes back to the same shop, hoping to see Guyao again, but there's no sign of her. As days go by, he starts to lose hope of ever seeing her again. But one day, he's surprised to find out that Guyao hosts a show. He remembers she said she was a presenter and is thrilled to discover she works at the same channel as his sister, which means he might get the chance to see her again. Meanwhile, Ding Liao is driving home from work and sees Jiang in front of her. Still upset over what happened, she glares at him and refuses to give him a ride. When Jiang gets home, he finds Ding Liao struggling to carry a bunch of boxes and asking him to press the elevator buttons for her. To annoy her, he says he was planning to take the stairs. Ding Liao has no choice but to follow him up. Jiang smirks and says taking the stairs is better for losing weight. The next day, on her way home from work, Ding Liao feels like someone is following her. It turns out to be two little kids. The next morning, she goes to work and shows her coworkers a video the kids gave her, which shows one of their classmates bullying them. She wants to air the issue on the channel and raise awareness about bullying. But the manager refuses to address the video because the bully is the son of one of the channel's investors, and they don't want any trouble. Ding Liao feels frustrated and disappointed, until Guyao's show starts a little later. Ding Liao finds out that Guyao took the video and aired it on her program, speaking out about the issue without fear. This impresses Ding Liao deeply, and she decides she wants to be friends with her. She invites Guyao to dinner, where she thanks her for what she did and for standing by her against the manager. The two girls agree to help others however they can, starting with the restaurant manager who had been harassing a waitress. They confront him, saying they're journalists and will expose him. When Ding Liao returns to work, her manager tells her to do an interview with her boyfriend, Jiang. She insists he's just a tenant in her house, and they don't get along at all, so someone else should do it because Jiang won't agree anyway. But her manager insists and forces her to do it. Ding Liao storms off to see Jiang, fuming. On her way, she drops some files, and Jiang quickly helps her pick them up. When she looks at him, she finds herself once again struck by how handsome he is. They go into the office together, and Jiang offers her some food. But he quickly says it's only to help her stay focused at work, nothing more, which makes Ding Liao feel awkward. They begin preparing for the interview, and when Jiang finally does it, everything goes smoothly. Ding Liao thanks Jiang for agreeing to do the interview and invites him to dinner as a gesture of appreciation. While they're out buying soda at the supermarket, the cashier gives Ding Liao 2 panda-shaped keychains. She keeps one and gives the other to Jiang as a thank you gift. Jiang misinterprets the gesture and thinks Ding Liao might be interested in him, which makes him happy. Soon after, they hear a commotion outside. Someone's been in an accident. Jiang rushes to the scene and immediately starts performing first aid. While giving Ding Liao instructions to assist him, he's impressed that she follows them all perfectly. When the ambulance arrives, the paramedics thank Jiang for saving the victim. Ding Liao then notices Jiang has injured his hand. She quickly runs to get bandages. Jiang sits beside her and thanks her for the help. Ding Liao says she's tired, so they both decide to skip dinner and just head home, although Jiang seems a little disappointed about canceling. When they get home, Dingmin overhears Ding Liao telling Jiang to take care of his hand. He's surprised and wonders when the two of them got so close. Ding Liao notices that Dingmin is watching her show on TV and feels happy, thinking it's the first time he's done that. She doesn't realize he's only watching to catch a glimpse of Guyao. Later that evening, Jiang comes out of his room and finds Ding Liao asleep on the couch in front of the TV. He gently covers her with a blanket, but Ding Liao suddenly wakes up and asks what he's doing. Jiang gets flustered and says he just came to thank her again, then quickly leaves, leaving Ding Liao wondering when he suddenly became this sweet. The next day, Ding Liao's friend notices that she's talking about Jiang a lot, unlike before when she used to criticize him. Ding Liao tells her she's simply impressed by his change. Just then, she enters and asks Ding Liao if Jiang is dating anyone, saying she wants to do an interview with him. Ding Liao replies that the question has nothing to do with an interview. Later, during a meeting, Ding Liao and her colleagues get criticized by their manager for lacking topics on the channel. He tells them they need to go out into the street and interact with people to find fresh news. When Ding Liao finishes work and steps outside, she finds Dingmin waiting for her. He came to see Guyao, and when Ding Liao asks him what he's doing there, Dingmin lies, saying he's there to pick her up. Ding Liao, however, knows when he's lying and tells him she's going to take the bus to look for work topics. On the bus, Ding Liao finds Jiang sleeping by the window, and a girl next to him is taking pictures with him without his consent. Ding Liao goes over to the girl, shows her the panda keychain, and tells her that Jiang is her boyfriend. When Jiang wakes up and sees Ding Liao next to him, he's startled. Ding Liao explains the situation, and Jiang offers to have lunch with her instead of their previous plans. Ding Liao agrees. Meanwhile, Dingmin waits for a long time for Guyao, and when she finally appears, he's ecstatic to see her getting into her car. Back with Ding Liao and Jiang, he thanks her for what she did for him, and Ding Liao starts talking to him. For the first time, Jiang laughs because he's genuinely enjoying his time with her. Ding Liao tells him his smile is beautiful and asks him to always smile. She even starts taking pictures of him to capture the moment. It's clear that Jiang Kan is becoming happier in her company. The next day, Jiang Kan decides to take Ding Liao's advice. When Ying comes to apologize for something she forgot, Jiang Kan smiles at her with a wide grin, so much so that Ying is shocked and quickly tells him that she already has a boyfriend. Jiang Kan feels disheartened because he realizes that his smile might have been too much, and now his colleagues think he looks foolish. On the other side, Dingmin is watching Guyao's show with his young trainees. He's stunned to find out that Guyao is training at their gym. When he leaves, he unexpectedly runs into Guyao standing in front of the supermarket, unable to leave because of the rain. Seizing the opportunity, Dingmin quickly approaches her and offers her his umbrella before rushing off. Guyao smiles in admiration of the handsome guy's gesture and spends the rest of her workday thinking about him. Soon after, Ding Liao enters the office and tells Guyao that her brother is coming to pick her up by car. At first, Guyao refuses, but then Ding Liao sees her umbrella and says it's for her brother. Guyao is shocked to find out that Ding Liao's brother is the one she met earlier that day. Naturally, Guyao agrees to go with her, and when they meet Dingmin, she thanks him for the umbrella, feeling happy. Throughout the drive, Ding Liao notices the looks exchanged between Guyao and Dingmin and realizes that her brother is interested in her. A few minutes later, Guyao gets a call from her landlord telling her that the house will be rented to someone else, and she needs to move out. Dingmin quickly offers for Guyao to stay with them as a tenant, just like Jiang Kan. Guyao agrees right away, but Ding Liao tells him they only have the storage room available. They'll need to prepare it for her. Ding Liao asks Dingmin to convince Jiang Kan to share the room with him so they can clean it up for Guyao, but Dingmin insists that Ding Liao should convince Jiang Kan herself. When Ding Liao returns home, she goes to Jiang Kan and starts acting unusually kind toward him, which makes him nervous. She offers to drive him to work and even adjusts the seat for him, making their proximity very close. They both feel the tension. Ding Liao gets anxious, while Jiang Kan is happy but confused about what has caused her to be so kind. When they arrive at work, Ding Liao meets Jiang Kan's colleagues. One of them shakes her hand, and Jiang Kan feels a pang of jealousy. He quickly shakes the other person's hand before they can touch Ding Liao's, and then asks her to leave. However, Ding Liao tells him she'll wait for him to give him a ride home later in the day. When Jiang Kan returns from work, Ding Liao pretends to be asleep from exhaustion while waiting for him. He tells her that he'll drive but asks her about her strange behavior. Ding Liao admits the truth to him, and Jiang Kan becomes upset because he realizes that Ding Liao doesn't care for him the way he thought. He refuses to share the room with Dingmin. However, when he returns home, Ding Liao sends him a pleading message. The next morning, she pretends to trip in front of him so he can catch her, and then she asks him again. The following day, she sends him a picture of her face looking pleading, and Jiang Kan, unable to resist, agrees for her sake. Jiang Kan sits with Ding Liao and Dingmin and starts listing his conditions for staying with them. Despite having many demands, Dingmin agrees to everything. When Ding Liao goes to the company, her manager tells her she will have to collaborate with Jiang Kan on several consecutive interviews. Ding Liao tells him that she and Jiang Kan don't get along and suggests that maybe someone else should work with him. She calls Jiang Kan in front of her manager, and he says that Ding Liao is a skilled program host. The manager tells her that no one else will work with Jiang Kan except her. The next day, Dingmin goes to Guyao and tells her that she can move into his house now. He asks her why she agreed to move in, and she replies that she did it for him. At first, Dingmin thinks she's joking, but Guyao insists that she's telling the truth. Dingmin is surprised and doesn't know how to respond. In the next scene, we see Ding Liao with her colleagues discussing what they'll do with Jiang Kan. When Jiang Kan arrives, she asks him what he would like to drink. He tells her he'll have the same drink as Ding Liao. Then she asks him who he'd prefer to do the interview with, just to confirm. Jiang Kan tells them he would like to do the interview with Ding Liao, which annoys she. On the other side, Dingmin takes Guyao to show her the house. However, she can't think about anything other than Dingmin and tells him that she feels comfortable in the house as long as he's there. Dingmin feels awkward to the point that he ends up falling on the floor. At that moment, Jiang Kan and Ding Liao walk in, and they think that Dingmin is proposing to Guyao. Dingmin and Guyao explain the situation to them, and then they all sit down to look at childhood photo albums of Ding Liao and Dingmin. It turns out that their mother loved dressing them up so much that she would even put Dingmin in girls' clothes. When everyone laughs at this, Ding Liao says it's a normal thing that happens to everyone and jokes that it might have happened to Jiang Kan as well. Jiang Kan becomes uncomfortable and heads to his room. A little while later, Ding Liao follows Jiang Kan and gives him a booklet with tips on how to conduct TV interviews and how he can act more naturally. She tells him that if he does well, she will invite him to dinner again. The next day, they both leave the house together, heading to work. Along the way, people assume they are a married couple and keep complimenting them. Ding Liao becomes very uncomfortable with this and tries to explain the situation, but to no avail. Ding Liao arrives at Jiang Can's office and meets his colleagues before entering the meeting. She begins filming the interview with Jiang Can, and everything goes smoothly until the end of the meeting when Jiang Can receives a call from his manager. He's told that they need to include a segment on artificial respiration in the interview. Jiang Can is surprised, especially when his colleagues suggest that he should do the segment with Ding Liao, as they notice he is more natural when she's around, although he doesn't want to admit his feelings. Ding Liao gets nervous and refuses, but Jiang Can insists that there's no other choice. Before they start, a trainee arrives with a dummy for the artificial respiration training, which ruins the moment for Jiang Can. After returning to work, Ding Liao's friend gives her 2 tickets for a short trip to a coastal city and encourages her to go with Dingmin to relax. Ding Liao calls Dingmin to suggest the idea, but he refuses, saying he can't leave Guyao. On her way back, Ding Liao bumps into Jiang Can and asks if any of his colleagues are interested in the trip. He tells her that everyone is busy, but then, gathering some courage, he offers to go with her instead. Ding Liao is surprised by his offer, and they both go home to pack their bags. The next day, they both set off for the trip. On the bus, they are surprised to find that all the other passengers are couples, making them both feel awkward. They have no choice but to sit next to each other. After a while, Ding Liao feels tired and falls asleep on Jiang Can's shoulder. Though Jiang Can feels uneasy, he is secretly happy and eventually falls asleep peacefully as well. On the other hand, Dingmin is in the gym when his colleague comes to him and tells him that one of the individual participants wants to join his team. Dingmin is surprised because all of his students are children, but he tells his colleague to let the person move forward. Dingmin is shocked to find that it's Guyao, who tells him there's no need for her to train alone in the place as long as he's there. When the children see them, they ask them to play in a match together, but Dingmin refuses to use all his strength against Guyao. This allows her to win the first round, but she tells him that she knows he's going easy on her and asks him to use all his strength. Dingmin does as she asked, and in the end he falls on top of her, which makes the children happy to see them together. Meanwhile, Jiang Can and Ding Liao, when they arrive at the hotel, discover that it is also for couples, and there is only one room available which has only one bed. Both of them feel awkward, especially when they see the room, but Jiang Can tells her not to worry because he will sleep on the couch. Later, they both go to the beach, and Ding Liao decides to open her heart to him, starting to talk to him about everything. Jiang Can is happy to be with her. Ding Liao asks him to take pictures of her, which he does. When she asks to take a picture of him, he refuses, but she insists until he agrees. When he asks to see the picture, Ding Liao refuses and runs away, and Jiang Can chases her happily. They spend a great time together. After Ding Liao returns to the hotel, she finds her ex-boyfriend with her old friend, the one he took from her. The guy mocks her and asks if she's gotten a boyfriend or if she's still like a child. Ding Liao replies that being like a child is better than being a malicious girl who steals her friend's boyfriend or a traitorous guy who dates 2 girls at the same time. When they both sit down to eat, Jiang Can is sitting nearby and overhears them talking badly about Ding Liao. He feels angry and decides to take all the remaining food by himself as a way to take revenge for Ding Liao. On the other side, we see Guyao and Dingmin, who went out shopping for dinner. Dingmin notices that Guyao is bad at shopping because she picks fruits and vegetables based on how they look, and he laughs at her without commenting. When they return home, Dingmin realizes that she also can't cook, so he asks her to stop chopping the vegetables and wash the dishes instead. However, Ding Liao cuts her hand, and Dingmin quickly rushes to put a band-aid on it. Guyao feels his care for her, especially when he asks her to just watch while he does everything. In the evening, before going to sleep, Ding Liao tells Jiang Can that she's talked a lot about herself today, and now it's his turn to speak. Jiang Can, despite feeling sleepy, starts talking to her about his childhood, but he is surprised when Ding Liao falls asleep. He then starts gazing at her, thinking to himself that she's as sweet as a child. The next day, they both head to the couple's competition events, and Ding Liao runs into her ex-boyfriend and his girlfriend. The girl mocks her, telling her that she should focus on finding a boyfriend instead of bothering them. Just then, Jiang Can arrives, wraps his arms around Ding Liao, and says, "Why are you bothering my girlfriend?" Both of them feel embarrassed and walk away. Jiang Can, however, decides to enter the competition for Ding Liao. Ding Liao tells him not to do it since they don't have to, but he insists, saying he wants to win the big teddy bear. Since they understand each other so well, Jiang Can and Ding Liao manage to win, and Ding Liao is so happy that she hugs him without even realizing it. Afterward, they both head to the bus, feeling happy and leaning against the teddy bear. When Ding Liao returns home, she finds Dingmin in her room. He tells her he can't stand being around Jiangkan any longer, that his strict rules are bothering him, and he asks if he can sleep with her. She refuses and tells him that he has only two options, either Jiangkan's room or the couch in the living room. When Dingman returns to the room, he tells Jiangkan not to annoy him because he's an expert in martial arts. Jiangkan mocks him, saying he just looks like a fool and that his body is anything but athletic. Dingman gets closer to Jiangkan, angry, and tells him that his body is fine, and that he'll leave the room and sleep on the couch. Jiangkan replies that he can't stand not sleeping on a bed for too long and will eventually return to the room. Neither of them realizes that Guyao overheard the entire conversation, and she also believes that they are dating. She goes back to her room, feeling sad because Dingman is not into girls, even though she liked him. At the same time, she feels bad for him, thinking that Jiangkan has broken up with him. She goes to the couch, covers Dingman with a blanket, and intends to help him get over it. The next day, Ding Liao starts glaring at Jiangkan with angry, fiery looks while trying to mediate between the two, telling Dingman he should go back to his room. Guyao tries to clarify the breakup situation to Ding Liao, but Ding Liao tells her she's too busy and needs to go to work with Jiangkan. There, Jiangkan keeps watching Ding Liao lovingly as she plays with the children innocently. Even his colleague notices that he's doing nothing but staring at her. As for Guyao, she goes to Jiangkan's workplace and begins observing him with his friend. She starts to think that he's cheating on Dingman, which makes her feel even angrier and more resentful toward him. Ding Liao returns home to find tears in Dingman's eyes. She rushes to him and hugs him, trying to comfort him, telling him she knows what he's going through and that everything will be okay. However, Dingman, who is crying because of chopping onions, doesn't understand what Guyao is doing but feels happy that she's around and caring for him. Soon after, Jiangkan arrives and sees her hugging Dingman. Guyao doesn't pay him any attention and asks him to sleep in her room for a while until they prepare dinner. When Ding Liao arrives, everyone sits down to eat, but Guyao keeps glaring at Jiangkan angrily, as if saying, "I know exactly what you're doing, you traitor." Jiangkan doesn't understand why she hates him. After a while, Jiangkan remembers how Ding Liao was playing with the children and laughs. Guyao thinks he's laughing at Dingman, so she says angrily, "I don't see anything funny here," and storms off. The three of them are puzzled by Guyao's strange behavior towards Jiangkan, to the point that Ding Liao takes him to the balcony and asks if there's a problem with Guyao. Jiangkan swears that he doesn't understand what's wrong with her. Ding Liao asks if Guyao might like him and is just feeling jealous, but Jiangkan points to Dingman and Guyao and tells her that it's clear she likes Dingman, though he doesn't know why she dislikes him. The next day, Guyao waits for Dingman outside his workplace and tells him that she wants him for the whole day because she knows how hard things are for him. Dingman thinks she overheard him arguing with Ding Liao because she's stealing his clothes. Even though he's being foolish, he's happy because he believes Guyao cares for him a lot. Soon after, Jiangkan's friend arrives and tells Guyao that he's a big fan of hers. Guyao, however, acts distant and superior towards him because of Dingman. When Jiangkan arrives and takes his friend to work, Guyao covers Dingman's eyes with her hand and asks him not to pay attention to them. She then takes him shopping, buys him many things, and they enjoy ice cream together. Dingman is very happy to have her around. In the evening, Ding Liao and Guyao go out together and drink a lot. Guyao starts crying because Dingman is not into girls, and Ding Liao, without any particular reason, joins her in crying. Ding Liao then calls Jiangkan and starts crying, and he realizes that she's drunk. He calls Dingman, and both of them rush to the location. Jiangkan arrives first, and Guyao starts calling him evil, before spinning around and bumping into Dingman, who just arrived. Dingman asks Jiangkan to stay with his sister while he takes Guyao away. Outside, Guyao keeps crying and talking to the trees, and Dingman watches her with affection. Guyao then gets closer and kisses him. Dingman decides to carry her on his back, taking advantage of her drunken state, and confesses his love to her. The next day, both girls apologize to Dingman and Jiangkan, promising that they won't drink too much alcohol again. To make up with Jiangkan, Ding Liao offers to go with him to the bookstore to buy the scientific books he wanted. There, she meets a young man named Yi Fan, who happens to have Ding Liao's favorite book. He faces an issue with payment, so Ding Liao decides to pay for him. Yi Fan thanks her, and Ding Liao tells him how much she loves this book and that she's a huge fan of the author. She continues talking about the author with Yi Fan, who shares the same interest, watches them with jealousy and anger. When Ding Liao goes to him, Jiangkan talks to her angrily and leaves, and she doesn't understand what's wrong with him. On the other hand, Guyao spends time watching Dingman at home with affection. She tells him that they'll go to the cinema as a way to make up for what happened yesterday. When they get there, they discover that the movie they wanted to see is sold out, and the only movie available is a horror film. Guyao suggests they watch it, and Dingmin agrees reluctantly so she won't think he's scared. Inside the theater, Dingmin is terrified, and Guyao notices how cute he looks in his fear. She hugs him and pats his head to comfort him. The next day, Ding Liao is surprised when her boss tells her that the famous author Yi Fan has decided to hold a press conference to finally reveal his identity after years of hiding it. They are asked to cover the press conference. Ding Liao gets excited and asks her boss if she can have an exclusive interview with Yi Fan, and her boss agrees. Ding Liao is thrilled because she will finally learn the identity of her favorite author. When Ding Liao arrives at the theater where the interview will be held to record for her TV channel, she enters and meets Yi Fan, the same person she met at the bookstore. She greets him and assumes he's there to attend the press conference for their favorite author. She proudly tells him that she will finally get to see him and hopes he will agree to an interview. When Ding Liao returns home, she's on cloud 9, and during dinner, she shares her excitement about the accomplishment. She'll finally get to meet her favorite author, who will reveal his identity at the press conference. Jiangkan feels a pang of jealousy and anger, and Dingmin feels the same way when Guyao expresses her admiration for the author, saying she wishes she could attend the conference. Ding Liao tells her she'll take her along with no problem, and the two girls celebrate while the guys are quite upset. Dingmin, trying to mask his feelings, comments that there's no need for all this. The author is probably not good looking, which is why he kept his identity hidden. After a while, Yi Fan appears on a televised interview and reveals his identity to everyone. Ding Liao is shocked when she realizes that it's the same young man. She jumps up excitedly, telling them that he's the guy she helped before and that she's happy to have spoken to him privately twice. Jiang Kan's jealousy intensifies, and he sits next to Dingmin, with both trying to hide their growing frustration and anger. But both guys decide to attend the conference to stop Guyao and Ding Liao from meeting the author. A little while later, the event organizer announces that one person will be chosen to take a picture with Yi Fan. While most people were excited, neither Dingmin nor Jiang Kan showed much interest, until Jiang Kan noticed that Ding Liao raised her hand. Quickly, he raised his hand too and insisted that he was a huge fan and really wanted a picture. He ends up getting chosen and takes a photo with Yi Fan. Ding Liao is surprised to see Jiang Kan there and confused about his sudden interest in the author. After the event, Jiang Kan waits for Ding Liao to come over, but he's shocked to see her arriving with Yi Fan. Ding Liao then asks Jiang Kan to take a photo of her with Yi Fan. Although he's clearly annoyed, he agrees to take it. Yi Fan picks up on Jiang Kan's irritated mood. A little later, Guyao and Dingmin show up, and Guyao expresses her admiration for Yi Fan. Yi Fan then suggests they all go out to dinner together, but Ding Liao declines, something that makes Jiang Kan happy at first. But then she adds that instead of going out, she'll just invite him over to their place so they can feel more comfortable. Jiang Kan's and Dingmin's jealousy hits a new level. When they all get to the house, they eat, drink, and eventually start playing a game of truth or dare. Dingmin asks Jiang Kan, if you had to choose between your beloved dog and Ding Liao, who would you pick? Jiang Kan gets embarrassed and can't answer directly, so he says, well, I'm allergic to dogs, so I guess I'd have to choose Ding Liao. A little while later, Guyao asks Ding Liao if she still sees Jiang Kan as a cold person or if she now thinks his personality is actually nice and attractive. Ding Liao admits that she's realized Jiang Kan is very different from how he used to seem, and that his personality is quite admirable. Jiang Kan feels really happy hearing that, especially when he notices Yi Fan getting visibly tense. Yi Fan understands that both Ding Liao and Jiang Kan have feelings for each other but haven't confessed yet, so he decides to leave. As he's walking out, Yi Fan tells Ding Liao to take a closer look at the people around her. Maybe she'll discover things she hadn't noticed before. Later, Ding Liao returns home to find Jiang Kan waiting for her near the road. He wants to ask her about what she said and whether she really does like him, but he gets too shy and instead asks her about the charity event they're organizing for the preschool kids. When they go inside, Ding Liao starts explaining her plan for the event, but Jiang Kan can't focus on anything except her. He wants to confess his feelings but, as usual, can't find the courage, so he stays quiet, even though his eyes clearly show how deeply he feels for her. The next day, Guyao receives a call from her mother, telling her she set her up on a blind date. Although Guyao protests, her mom insists she doesn't have a choice. When Guyao arrives at the date, she realizes the guy is completely different from her, so much so that he doesn't even want his future wife to have a job. Guyao tells him she has a career and can't give up her work, but the man just mocks her. At that moment, Dingmin arrives at the place, grabs Guyao's hand, and says he won't let her leave him for anyone else. He takes her outside. Guyao thanks him for helping her, but Dingmin scolds her for going on the date in the first place. He tells her that if she plans to date anyone, it should be him and no one else. Guyao is surprised. But then Dingmin confesses that he's been in love with her since the first time he saw her. Guyao smiles sweetly, realizing she had misunderstood the whole situation between him and Jiangkan. She confesses her love in return, and they officially start dating. When they get back home, they're both incredibly happy, still in disbelief over what just happened. Meanwhile, Jiangkan and Ding Liao attend the charity event as planned. There, they notice one student always sitting alone and never playing with the others. After a while, they realize all the kids are bullying him, and he looks really sad. Ding Liao goes to talk to him, and Jiangkan decides to put together a short play and gives the lonely boy the lead role. Their plan works. After the play, the other kids start respecting him and even include him in their games. But at the end of the day, while all the other children's families arrive to pick them up, the boy remains alone. Jiangkan and Ding Liao realize he's an orphan. Ding Liao goes to him and asks about his family. He tells her that only his grandfather takes care of him, but he won't be home from work until later. So Ding Liao suggests that the boy join her and Jiangkan for a little outing. They take him out to play and eat, and the boy is incredibly happy. The three of them look like a real, loving family. At the end of the day, they drop the boy off at his home and head back together. When Ding Liao and Jiangkan return, Ding Liao sees Guyao kissing Dingmin and is completely shocked. She rushes over, and the two of them admit they're officially in a relationship. Ding Liao enters the house still in shock and reminds them that they all agreed not to date anyone. She calls Dingmin an idiot, but Guyao defends him and says she was the one who fell for him first. Dingmin insists that he was actually the first to fall for her. Ding Liao starts to feel like they're both unbearably cringy. The next day, Ding Liao sees Dingmin tying Guyao's shoe and cringes again. She storms off to Jiangkan and tells him her dumb brother now has a girlfriend and she wants one too. She declares that she's going to find herself a boyfriend, which makes Jiangkan angry and he walks off. Later, when Dingmin comes back, they all sit down to watch TV, and Ding Liao notices how much he cares about Guyao. Feeling jealous, she grabs Jiangkan's hand. He thinks she's finally going to confess her feelings, but instead, she tells him she wants him to help her find a boyfriend among his friends. Jiangkan pulls his hand away angrily and says that's not happening, not even in her dreams. The next day at work, Lily congratulates Jiangkan on his rising popularity after the charity event, but all Jiangkan can think about is hinting to Ding Liao about his feelings, so he sets the profile picture on his phone to the one she took of him. At Ding Liao's job, her boss asks her to do another interview with Jiangkan because of how popular he's become. When she gets home and tells Jiangkan about it, he asks her to help him pick out a suit for the interview. As she helps, Jiangkan uses every chance he gets to try and get closer to her. During the interview, the host starts asking about healthy food. The other two doctors talk about the meals their wives prepare for them. When it's Jiangkan's turn, he says he's not married but there's a sweet girl who makes him delicious food. Then he looks at Ding Liao, who realizes he's talking about her and starts feeling more nervous. Suddenly, she notices one of the photographers harassing Shi, so she rushes over to help. The man pushes them, and a camera almost falls on them. Ding Liao pushes Shi out of the way but twists her ankle. Jiangkan quickly carries Ding Liao to the hospital, where the doctor tells him it's a sprain and will heal once it's set back into place. Ding Liao prepares herself for the pain and hugs Jiangkan tightly. He gently pats her head, then carries her on his back all the way home. There, he helps her take off her shoes, lays her on the bed and takes care of her. Ding Liao feels touched by his attention and wants to thank him, so she tries to get up, but just as Jiangkan walks in with a glass of water, she stumbles and falls into his arms. He gently puts her back in bed, and Ding Liao feels incredibly shy from being so close to him. The next day, Jiangkan starts cooking for her and clearly cares for her all the time until she's fully recovered and can walk again. Later, it's New Year's Eve. Dingmin decides to take Guyao on a date. While she's waiting for him, a man in a teddy bear costume shows up and flirts with her. Guyao tells him she already has a boyfriend. Dingmin, who was in the costume, is thrilled. He takes off the mask, and Guyao kisses him happily. While Jiangkan was preparing a Christmas celebration for her at home, he asked her to place the star on top of the tree. As she did, he stayed close by, afraid she might fall. Then the power went out, and Jiangkan helped Ding Liao get down safely. She thought he was about to kiss her, but instead he gently patted her head and wished her a Merry Christmas. That night, while Ding Liao was asleep, she dreamed of Jiangkan confessing his love for her. When she woke up, she realized how she truly felt about him. Meanwhile, Dingmin asked Jiangkan to be honest about his feelings for his sister. Jiangkan admitted he loved her but didn't know how to tell her. Later at work, Jiangkan overheard his friends giving advice on how to confess love. He listened closely and decided to try their suggestions with Ding Liao. One piece of advice was to post a photo of them together, so Jiang Ken did exactly that and waited for Ding Liao's reaction. But when Ding Liao came home, she was upset. She told him he should have asked her first because she looked bad in the photo and would have chosen a different one. Jiang Ken got angry, and Ding Liao realized she may have overreacted. She went to apologize, but Jiang Ken ended up apologizing first for not asking her permission before posting it. Ding Liao then invited him to dinner the next day as a way of making it up to him, and they were both really happy. They went out to dinner, and during the meal, Ding Liao told him that her and Dingman's birthday was on Saturday and asked if he'd join the celebration. Unfortunately, Jiang Ken said he had work that day. Ding Liao understood. While Jiang Ken was drinking, he got really drunk. Ding Liao moved closer, trying to calm him down. Jiang Ken leaned in, and she thought he was going to kiss her, but he passed out before he could. On Ding Liao's birthday, she, Dingman, and Guyao go camping near the forest. Since Dingman and Guyao are together, Ding Liao feels lonely. She sends Jiang Ken a message saying the place is beautiful and that they miss him. She also tells him that if he finishes work, he's welcome to come. A little while later, Jiang Ken sends her a nearby location. She heads there and finds the spot empty, until Jiang Ken appears holding a cake. They sit together, and Ding Liao thanks him for coming despite being busy. Jiang Ken finally confesses his love for Ding Liao. He tells her he had so many questions in life with no answers, until he met her. She became the answer to everything, and she changed his life. He tells her he truly loves her. Meanwhile, Dingman and Guyao are happily sitting by the fire in their tent. Jiang Ken puts his coat on Ding Liao when she feels cold and tells her he's lucky to have met her and wants to spend his life with her. After that, both Jiang Ken and Dingman return to the tent, each feeling both nervous and happy after finally confessing their love. Dingman tells Jiang Ken he wants to get some water from the girl's tent and rushes off to grab it. When he comes back, Jiang Ken tells him he also wants some water, but really he just wants to talk to Ding Liao for a bit. Guyao notices how much Jiang Ken loves Ding Liao and how attached he seems to her. The two of them keep making up excuses all night to go to the girl's tent and see their girlfriends. When the trip ends and everyone returns home, Ding Liao feels movement in the house, and they discover that their uncle has come back to stay with them for a while. Of course, he greets Jiang Ken warmly. The uncle sees Guyao and assumes she's Jiang Ken's girlfriend, but Dingman quickly corrects him, saying she's his. Meanwhile, Jiang Ken and Ding Liao feel nervous about revealing their relationship to their uncle, so they start pretending there's absolutely nothing going on between them. A few days later, the uncle says he's traveling again, and Jiang Ken and Ding Liao feel a bit relieved. After he leaves, Ding Liao tells Jiang Ken they can finally be together. She sits on his lap to kiss him, but just as she's in his arms, the uncle suddenly returns to pick up some things, and is shocked by what he sees. But he quickly accepts the relationship and doesn't oppose it. On the contrary, he supports them. In the end, each couple shares the story of how they fell in love and how happy they are to be with the person they were meant for. And with that, the video comes to an end. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.